Thanks for joining us on CN Live. I'm Colion Noir, and our first guest is the president for the National Deer Alliance, Nick Pinizzotto. What's going on, Nick? So I'm pretty sure did I get the last name right? Because I'm pretty sure I kind of butchered it. I know I tried to get it correct before.
That's been the story of my life. You actually were pretty close. It's Pinizzotto, but I've gotten it many different versions, of course.
Gotcha. Okay, so let's jump right into it. So, what is the National Deer Alliance? Because I'm not a huge hunter. I've hunted before, but for those of us out there who don't really know much about it, what is it?
Yep. Well, the first thing we have to fix is that you're not a huge hunter. We can work on that. So the National Deer Alliance, and a lot of people are still learning about us because we're truly a brand new organization. We've been in existence for about a year. And so the reason we were formed is to really work on policy issues that impact deer and hunting. Unfortunately, we live in a time now where it's actually much more about the political science when it comes to managing deer than it is the biological science. It used to be that if you could prove in some scientific way you needed to do X, Y, or Z to help deer, then that's what you did. Nowadays, you have to overcome the biological science and then trying to get that out to the public. And as you know, we live at a time where the public tends to be pretty soft on a lot of issues, and it becomes very difficult to get things done. So we actually were born out of three existing national deer groups that are pretty prominent and been around a long time. So the Mule Deer Foundation, Quality Deer Management Association, and Whitetails Unlimited. Those three groups kind of came together and said, listen, we have very distinct conservation missions, but we have to do so much more on policy, and we have to be working Capitol Hill and working in the states. We need to form an organization that can focus on that work for us so that we can focus on conservation. So that's the reason the National Deer Alliance was formed, and we're heading very strongly into our second year in 2017.
That's pretty amazing. So my question for you, for a lot of people out there, they don't really understand the conservation component. You said you called it the biological, am I correct?
Yeah.
Is that what you were referring to when you said
Yeah.
that? So for those of us out here who don't really know too much about how hunting serves as a conservation effort as well, how does that work?
Yeah, so deer, first of all, are by far the most pursued species in the United States. We're talking about 83% of all hunters say that they're a deer hunter. They may hunt other things, but they hunt deer. And deer is, whether we're talking mule deer, white-tailed deer, blacktails, what have you, they're the prominent iconic species in the United States. That's what people hunt. But the problem is you also see them in your cities, in your suburbs, in your backyards. So there's the critical need to make sure we manage the herd properly. So seeing tons of deer isn't always a great thing for a number of different things, and even an impact on non-game animals. So, threatened and endangered species, for example, a lot of that can be due to overabundant deer populations destroying habitats. So the management of the biological end of it is quite simple, and that is we use science to guide how we manage deer. We use science to decide how many we can have in a certain area, how many hunting tags can go out. We track how many deer are harvested through hunting. We work on disease issues, all in an effort to balance deer with the available habitat. And by the way, dealing with society out there, which is part of the habitat. We're animals in this habitat here on Earth. So, like I said earlier, it used to be that the biological science would rule the day. You would just tell people, hey, we have to eliminate X number of deer because of this. And people would go for it. Nowadays, you have to not only have the science, but you have to also sell the political end. And it's become a lot more challenging in our world.
So now, what would the world look like without this conservation?
That's a great question, and I think one of the really bad things about deer, and there aren't that many, if you ask me, but one of the really bad things is they can very quickly outgrow their habitat and not only eat themselves out of house and home, but everything else as well. So everything from songbirds that people like to see. Deer can have a very, very profound impact on forest ecosystem, for example, which just is a chain reaction effect that just starts to impact everything. And even people that live in suburbs that they may not be hunters, but they have deer in their world, as simple as coming in and eating their garden or chewing on their shrubs can be quite irritating. So the cute little deer that they like to see, all of a sudden they say, you know what, we need to get rid of some of these things because they can become a nuisance. So if we didn't manage them, it would be a lot of problems, not only just for the deer in terms of disease and overabundance, but for a lot of other animals as well and human beings.
Yeah. So it's like, I wonder, the way you explain it to me makes perfect sense on my end. Now, maybe I may be a little biased, but nonetheless, why is it that there are certain groups out there who shall remain nameless who are so dead set against this idea of conservation by means of hunting? And do they not understand the implications of of not engaging in this level of conservation, or am I missing something?
No, I think there's two levels to it. So you have, on the one hand, you have the people that they don't like hunting.
Okay.
They don't like us shooting or killing anything. They don't like the idea of it, and they really don't care about the management. They kind of try to come up with all different types of ways to explain that away. We're never going to convince those people, so frankly, we don't spend too much time doing it.
Yeah.
The people I'm most concerned about, though, are the people that are in the middle. So depending on the numbers you look at, let's say between 70 and 75% of the country, they may not be hunters, but they at least support the idea of regulated hunting to do the types of things I talked about earlier, to manage wildlife. They can be very easily influenced by the other side. The other side will put together the commercials. We all see them. They pretend that they're out there trying to protect our pets and so on, but really all of their money is going into these anti-hunting agendas. And even for deer, I can tell you, I live in Columbus, Ohio, and outside the suburbs here, we have deer management issues. And you can see in the local papers here where you'll have somebody chime in and say, well, I just really like to see the deer, and do we really have to kill them, and can we take them away and drop them off somewhere else in somebody else's backyard? For those type of people, we have opportunity because we can explain to them why we have to do it, why sometimes killing a deer is more humane than trying to do something like they're doing on Staten Island right now, and that is actually catching buck white-tailed deer and giving them vasectomies. So that's not very humane.
Sorry, what?
Yeah, I know, right? I know, I hear you. That's the crazy.
It took a second for that to really click. Let's stay there for a little bit. So they're doing what?
The V word tends to catch men off guard. So yeah, I hear you. So they're actually, as opposed to just going in and having a call of the deer on Staten Island, or even a regulated hunt, what they've chosen to do is put millions of dollars into giving bucks vasectomies. So they're paying a consultant to come in and actually catch the deer and then give them a vasectomy and put them back out there. Now, there are a lot of problems with this. Number one, if even just a couple bucks slip through, if they're lucky enough to get away, they can breed dozens of does, over the breeding cycle, and still, father many, many fawns, and it keeps going. And also, you still aren't going to be able to keep deer from getting to Staten Island either. So it's just really foolhardy. It's not well thought out. It's based on emotion. And we have to balance the science and the truth with the emotion that these people struggle with. And I get it. Movies like Bambi, deer managers any favors. And as a hunter, as a lifelong hunter, and I speak for a lot of hunters, we care deeply about these animals.
Yeah.
We believe in a fair hunt and a fair opportunity, a fair chase hunting opportunity. But we also believe in humaneness. Our goal is a predator, and human beings are predators. People forget that. Our goal is to dispatch that animal as quickly and humanely as possible. Well, in the meantime, you have these anti-hunting groups. What they do is they try to protect coyotes and wolves and so on. We need to have coyotes and wolves, but I can tell you that a coyote or a wolf could care less about the humaneness of how they kill.
Yeah.
They'll take their time, they'll enjoy it, and that's not necessarily good for the deer. So human beings are predators, and we tend to be very good and efficient predators. We have opportunity with the people in the middle who understand hunting at least a little bit to get that point across.
Gotcha. Now, the irony behind it, at least for me, there's a certain level of hypocrisy that I've noticed for people who are kind of like ill hunting. It's only ill hunting for the animals that aren't cute. If it's not a beautiful animal, if it's not a cute animal, they're perfectly okay with it being killed. However, when it comes to animals that kind of evoke an emotional response, like the deers, the Bambis of the world, and these animals that kind of call to us because they're so beautiful, they're just like, no, stop, right? There's no logic, there's no reasoning or rationale behind it. It's just purely emotion, like you pointed out. What is it that you all, as an organization, can do blatantly that kind of helps, I guess in many ways, call that kind of hypocrisy out? Is that something that you guys engage in, or is it something, or do you kind of count them off as they're just going to be that way and there's nothing much we can do?
I think what we try to do more than anything is to be a quality information provider. We want to work, like I said, at the federal level. We want to work at the state level to make sure that good legislation is passed for deer management. One of the things we're seeing now that's been a challenge is that people who see the warm and cuddly deer out there will go to their lawmakers and say, we need to have some sort of law to either eliminate or limit hunting, and they don't realize what they're doing. They think they're saving an animal. They look at a species as a particular animal or group of animals.
Yeah,
Whenever
yeah.
we're talking about an entire species or herds of animals. That's how we have to manage these things. So what we can do is we can work for making sure that we get good information to people who make the decisions. In some cases, these groups will take these things to a ballot initiative, and then you've got to get good information to voters so that they understand that hunting, the smallest part of it is actually pulling that trigger and getting the picture with your trophy, right? That's just a very small part of the bigger management picture. So we work very hard to make sure that we have good policies out there. And when we see a bad policy, then we're going to rally our fellow hunters and people that understand deer hunting and management and make sure they contact their legislators or even just talk to their neighbors and say, hey, when you vote on Initiative 55 this year, here's why you need to vote this way, because deer management is a big picture issue.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about a little bit more of the specifics of actually hunting and what a lot of people actually feel is almost a spiritual endeavor in many ways. So we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back.